it's really, it feels good to be back. It feels good to be back at Science and Nonduality conference. And I'll tell you a little secret how it happened last year. I met Maurizio at this New Year's Eve party. And we spoke maybe for 5 minutes, maybe less. And more or less, the next day he sent me an invitation to come to SAND. And at that time, I was sort of like one of those math professors, you know. So I went to academic conferences, and I was used to certain ways, you know. But it was kind of the ice was starting to melt a little bit, perhaps, you know. And so that was like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And then I went on a SAND website. And I was curious, but then again, I was like, what is this new agey stuff, you know? and I'm being honest with you, that's what a lot of scientists who come across, that's our left brain. Left brain is trying to protect us, is trying to steer us away from learning more about ourselves. So we create all these labels, new age, old age, or whatever, you know, all this stuff. So now it's much more familiar to me. But you know, at that time, finally, I didn't want to even accept the invitation for a while because I wasn't sure. What about my reputation? I have a reputation. I mean, seriously, I have to protect my reputation. And so, I hope you understand, you know. And so, but in the end, I was like, okay, fine. I'll just give a talk about the beauty of mathematics. My book just came out, Love and Math, and I'll talk about mathematics. But in the meantime, certain things were happening. And so a lot of things kind of boiled over. And just the time when I gave my presentation here last year, it was almost exactly 1 year ago, I actually sort of like tore my plan for that lecture. And I just basically said, you know what, I'm just going to talk about what I'm passionate about right now. And the result was that talk, which you can see on YouTube. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting, I think. It's kind of an interesting document because I kind of like look at it now kind of from outside a little bit, kind of detached. Because it was very raw. It was kind of intense, you know, because I was going through this very intense experience at that time of rediscovering myself. And I'll talk more about this today. But it's basically sort of like, if you want to see what it looks like when someone is discovering himself or herself in real time, that's what it could look like. So now, a year later, where am I a year later? You know, I've been sort of contemplating that thing, and I've been sort of on that going through that process. And so I want to share with you some of the insights, maybe, on sort of my condition in some sense, and our condition, maybe, you know. So let's see. So in this past year, I got to speak quite a bit. I'm speaking more and more about what it means to be alive, really. Because, you know, we talk so much about extending our lives today. We're so afraid of death. What we really are afraid of is our idea of death. And that fear prevents us, blocks us from seeing what's right in front of our eyes, from being in that moment, from enjoying life, from being alive. And I try to talk about it to other people, and other scientists in particular. And I try to use analogies and metaphors from mathematics, because I think it's one sort of area which has not been explored, utilized enough to help us to see the things in the right light. And so here's one example. There is a YouTube channel called Numberphile, which I highly recommend. It puts these fun videos about mathematics for people who you don't need any preparation, no special math education, and so it's just fun. It's fun stuff. And I've done a few videos for them. And so this one was posted just a couple of months ago, even though it was filmed like in the spring. And in this video, I try to talk about this idea, which a lot of people today kind of subscribe to, whether they realize it, think about it too much or not, which is that everything is numbers. Everything is algorithms, that somehow we are these machines, we are these robots like computers who are processing information. Something comes in, something comes out. So I try to argue from a mathematical point of view that the fallacy of this idea, that even in a very simple example where you start with something basic like a vector. So you see here on this screen, you see a vector, this red, actually there are three vectors, but you see one of them, say, each of them is this pointed interval. But then we learn from Descartes, who about 400 years ago, René Descartes, he explained to us that actually we could convert this vector into numbers. How to do that? Well, we have to impose a coordinate system. And when we impose a coordinate system, then the endpoint of a vector has two projections onto two of the coordinate axes, and then we can read off the coordinates. So we replace a vector by a pair of numbers. And then we do this so many times that we forget the difference between the vector and the numbers. And we start saying that the vector is the same as those two numbers, you see. What I was trying to explain in that video is that actually there is a big difference. First of all, the vector was on the plane even before I drew a coordinate system, right? The vector just is. But I came, or somebody came, and imposed on that world, and put that coordinate system, put the vector in a box, and then replaced it by numbers. But in fact, we could choose a different coordinate system. You see, the vector is still the same. The vector is still the same, but our point of view is changing. And depending on our point of view, our representation of that vector also changes. I thought it was such a nice metaphor for a lot of things in life. The difference between reality and our representations of that reality, the possibility of infinitely many representations of the same reality. You see here the vector is the same, but it can be represented by any pair of numbers. Any pair of numbers, depending on which coordinate system you choose, you see. And then the journalist of the YouTube channel, Brady Haran, he sort of kept pressing me on this. And then we talked, soon enough, we were talking about the difference between the meal and the menu. And then, about the fact that the experiences in life are not the same as our representations. And I said something like, well, when I fall in love, yes, there are many biological manifestations of that. Perhaps when I see my loved one, my heartbeat will increase, and there will be some other signatures of my emotions, my feelings, my state at that moment, right? But to say that it's the same as what I'm experiencing when I'm in love is just wrong. It's a mistake. So there was a lot of discussion about this video. And there were a number of comments which really kind of made me sort of step back and contemplate. And I want to put just one of them on the Does he know that love is a purely chemical reaction? And I swear, I did not put it myself. It was somebody else. Although it depends on your point of view, I suppose, who is asking whom. But that really struck the chord and made me wonder about several things. One is, how do you answer that? How do you explain? How do you share with somebody who perhaps never experienced love or never realized they were experiencing love, that love is not a chemical reaction? But also, when did this happen and why? I'm a scientist after all. So I'm curious, I'm asking questions, When did this happen? When did we decide that love is a chemical reaction? Because I see that sentiment expressed by a lot of people. It's funny because it's a sentiment, right? It's a sentiment. Does it also come from a chemical reaction? And you can continue like this, but we usually don't ask these questions. We prefer to stay within that narrow corridor. of what I would like to call Cartesianism. So this made me think about this process of us kind of going in a certain direction. And this is now, this issue, this question, is no longer a technical issue, a theoretical issue, a philosophical question, because it's connected to something which is happening in the world around us today. And this is related to today's discussion of artificial intelligence, of transhumanism. And it's very interesting because to see beneath all that discussion, because usually discussion is very theoretical. It's one theory against another theory. And then you can spend all your life basically arguing about it. What we usually don't do is we don't share what's inside, what's driving, because sometimes we are not even aware where these things come from. So this is Ray Kurzweil, a brilliant man, an engineer, an inventor, who has to his credit some of the most remarkable inventions of the second half of the 20th century. And he is a prophet of what he calls a technological singularity. So here are some quotes. We'll be able to fully back up our brains by the year 2045. For him, is this important year. We'll be able to think in the cloud. Well, I live in Berkeley, so in some sense, some of my neighbors already are thinking in the cloud, I guess. But it's a different cloud. We are going to put the gateways to the cloud in our brains. I like how, it's very vivid. It's very vivid in his imagination. I can imagine he's seeing actually those connections. And we'll be uploading our entire minds to computers and become immortal by 2045. It's obsessed with immortality. And it's clear why, because he believes in 2045, he will actually be able to upload himself onto a computer, but provided that he survives by then. And in 2045, he will be 97. So it's kind of close, right? Because it would be such a shame if he dies, let's say, 1 year before. So he has to work hard, and what he does is that he, according to published reports, everything I say is all published reports. It's no rumor, no innuendo here. He takes about 200 pills a day, and if you want to know what these pills are, you can buy them online. There's a website, which is called Ray and Terry's, magic pills, whatever. I will eschew the kind of obvious Ben and Jerry joke here. Ray and Terry, you see, and we wouldn't be talking about this so much, I suppose, because, it's his private matter, after all. Anybody can take as many pills as they want. But there is a small detail which is kind of important, which is that in January of 2013, Mr. Kurzweil was appointed as the director of engineering at Google, in charge of some important projects in artificial intelligence. And Google, of course, is the world's largest and most powerful information technology company. In case you have any doubts, I want to say I love Google. I use Google all the time. And by the way, I am a technology guy, as much as one could be a technology guy. I have a laptop, a Kindle, an iPhone. I take Uber, When I travel, I use Airbnb. I love it. I love technology. So don't think that I am against technology, that I am against artificial intelligence. By the way, there is a distinction between artificial intelligence, meaning apps and programs and algorithms which we use in our computers and our phones, and strong artificial intelligence, which we're talking about right now, which is the idea that humans are nothing but machines and computers, robots, and therefore we can actually create computers, robots, which will be just like us. And then for Mr. Kurzweil, this is actually a very personal matter. So he says there is beauty and love and creativity and intelligence. In the world, it all comes from neocortex. So all we need to do is to work on our neocortex and we'll become like gods. So that's the idea. But it's all theory. But when you go beneath it, and he actually is not hesitant to talk about it. He is not hesitant to talk about it. He talks about his father, Frederick Kurzweil, who was a noted musician. And he says we will create an avatar based on emails, text messages, letters, videos, and so on. And then we'll put nanobots into living people's brains and extract memories. You see? None of that has any basis in reality. None of it. This is crazy talk. This is madness. Because here is one quote. I don't have much time, unfortunately, to sort of like to give you some background on this. But here's one quote from the chief scientific officer of our Institute for Brain Science, who says the dirty secret is that basically we have no idea how the brain works. We have no idea how memories are created, where they're stored, how they're accessed. But this is whatever, let's say you stand on a purely materialistic position, that your brain is receiving some information, processing, and so on. It's not like a computer, we know that. It is not like a computer. It's not like there is a hard drive that we can access and put some nanobots inside and retrieve some information. So why someone like Kurzweil, who's a brilliant guy, very smart, very clever, has proved that many times over by creating those inventions and so on. How can he be sold on this crazy idea and talk about all this stuff? Well, here is another quote, and this is something that happened 3 weeks ago at an event at Singularity University, which he co-founded. Question and answers. He said, I have collected and I keep many boxes of information about my father. I have his letters, music, 8mm movies, and my fading memories of him. Yes, it will be possible, he says, to create a very realistic avatar in a virtual environment or augmented reality. When you actually interact with an avatar physically, it will ultimately be indistinguishable from the actual Frederick Kurzweil. The child inside is wounded. The child inside is hurting, and the child wants to be heard. He wants to be acknowledged. He wants to be loved like everyone else. And that has become clear to me when I connected to my experiences, when I connected to my child, actually several of them, because when we grow up, life intrudes on us, and things are happening, and we withdraw, and we create all these stories as a defense mechanism. It's not our fault. That's how it is. What's important is to go back and to hold the hand of that child and give him the love that he needs. So when are we going to appreciate the power, the energy? Because, the energy of those children, of our little ones, whom we put, in a basement, locked and chained to the walls and subsiding on water and bread, because we don't want to meet them, we don't want to meet ourselves. So then, instead, we're creating all these theories. That's the child trying to be relieved, to be released from that pain. I know how it works. I know how it happens. I talked about this a year ago, and you can watch that video to see. And at that time, it was all still very raw to me. And, when I connected, it was my child, he wanted to talk to other children about it. He wanted to share that experience because I had him there for so many years until finally I connected, and all this pain, I took that pain. And that's what is preventing us from going there and taking that pain, because we're afraid. And that's natural. But the pain is always finite. And we are infinite. We are infinite. Trust me, I'm a mathematician. So look at little Ray. So sweet, so vulnerable, so delicate, so precious. He needs our love, just like everyone else. So how do we find a way to help our brothers and sisters to do that? Because no one can do it for the big Ray. No one can force the big Ray to look back into his child memories, to find his little boy, to take his hand, and to bring him back. No one can force him. How do we find a way to talk to our brothers and sisters and to help them to do this? I think what I would like to suggest is that, yes, theories and explorations of theories and philosophies and so on is great. And I love presentations here that we need to do that because we need to explore as scientists and so on. But I think we should also try to change the conversation from general, philosophical, theoretical, where we talk about those other people, but never about myself. How about we change the conversation every once in a while? We actually come up to this podium and we share what happened to me. I share what happens to me, what happened to me, that experience. Because our little ones, they're all here. That's what you realize. When you connect, they're here. They're communicating. They're not shouting. They don't need to. But their move of their finger can make someone to acquire the power of the biggest information technology company in the world to pursue his idea, you see? That's how much power they have, unacknowledged and unloved. But we can. It's our choice at every moment to look inside and to give them that love that they want, that they searched for, that they need. As an academic, this is my academic ego, is made all these transparencies for you, so all the slides. So of course I don't have, I didn't have time to talk about all this, but I want to maybe just leave you with one quote. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And American philosopher and author, Louis Mumford, in his really amazing treatise, The Myth of the Machine, which was published in the 1960s, he said this beautiful, beautiful things. He said, for those of us who have thrown off the myth of the machine, the next move is ours. For the gates of the technocratic prison, which I might add, that we have so carefully built ourselves, will open automatically as soon as we choose to walk out. We have the choice. It's our choice. At every moment, it's our choice. I have made my choice. And I invite you to join me. Thank you. I just want to say maybe one more thing, just to be clear. It may appear that I am judging, that I am criticizing. I am not judging. There is nothing to be gained by judging somebody. It's very important. It's not about judging. It's about knowing what's going on, about knowing what's happening for all of us. That is the point.
Yeah.